What's up everybody, SuperDorks fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2016 Honda Civic Coupe EXT. Huge thanks to Maxx for providing me with this very cool Civic to review for you guys today. So about the 2016 Civics, well, I love this restyle. I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park personally. I know some people aren't a huge fan of it. I love every single angle. I mean, in the front there, very aggressive, very cool looking there though, and you can even get optional LEDs to make those headlights look even more futuristic if you'd like. And then, you know, going over to the back there, I love that long bar of you know, tail light that it has going on. Just very cool looking, and at night it looks fantastic as well. And it's great that not only the Coupe has those awesome taillights, but also the sedan and the hatchback. And so I think every variant of the Civic here looks awesome, but you know, I prefer Coupes myself, and I think as far as Coupes go, this looks really sleek and actually looks a little more expensive than you would expect for something that's, you know, right around 20,000 bucks. It's a really sharp looking thing, especially here in this silver color. Just very cool looking. Right, so the interior of the 2016 Civic Coupe, it's very nice here in the EXL trim. But anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, they're really comfortable seats. I gotta say, I mean, considering, remember, this is just the standard Civic Coupe. This isn't the SI or the Type R or anything, but they're actually really supportive and comfortable, but still have some nice bolstering to them so that they feel very snug. Not overly snug, but they feel sporty while still being comfortable for the everyday person that doesn't want a racing seat. And actually, they're really ideal seats. Next is the steering wheel in the Civic here, which in EXT trim does not have a leather wrap steering wheel. It's this plastic material. It doesn't feel bad. It would be nice if it was leather, but still nice nonetheless. And you know, a really good 9 and 3 grip. I do have to say that. It feels great in your hands here. Nice little 10 and 2 notches. And overall, just a nicely sized wheel. You have a few buttons here, including there's this little touch sensitive part here to move the volume up or down. And then you can also just hit the top or the bottom parts of it to, you know, use it like a normal rocker switch, I suppose. And so cool to have that. Another little directional pad here to control everything in the gauge cluster. But overall, like I said, just a nice wheel. But speaking of that gauge cluster, man, is it a beauty. So the gauges in the Civic, and this is something that aside from the base model, all of them really get. And it is a fantastic set of digital gauges. It looks so cool. You know, on the left and the right, you have some very futuristic looking coolant and you know, fuel gauges there. But then in the middle, you have this awesome three-dimensional looking gauge cluster that is so cool. I love the way that they set up the menus and everything. Just a very nice display as far as the speedometer and all that kind of stuff goes as well. But I love how, you know, since this is the EXT, the one with the 1.5 liter turbo, you have a nice turbo boost gauge. It doesn't give you any actual numbers, but does kind of give you a gauge as to how the turbo is spooling up and whatnot. So nice to have that nonetheless, even if it isn't super detailed. And you know, but all the other little screens there that you can display, you know, your phone or your music, all that kind of stuff. It's just really well done. And again, you would expect it to look nice in something that's twice this price, but in something that's 20,000 bucks, to have gauges this sweet looking whenever Audi charges you tons of money for their virtual cockpit. And this looks, you know, very nice as well. Not quite as nice as the virtual cockpit, but I mean, really impressive stuff here for a car in this class, I gotta say. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, it's also really well done. Now, the only thing is, of course, there is no volume knob, which drives people crazy. It's been that way in the Civics here for a few years now and hasn't changed with the brand new model here. You do have this little, I guess, volume rocker kind of thing where you swipe up and down in order to go up and down. Like I said, you do have a physical button here on the steering wheel, and I feel like most people use a steering wheel anyway, so not the end of the world, but, you know, I'm sure there's lots of people that go and reach for this climate control knob instead, and, you know, thinking that's a volume knob or something. But it would be nice if they re-added a volume knob. They did add one to the new CR-Vs coming out this next year, so hopefully it'll also get added in here to the Civics eventually as well. But this head unit is really crisp with the graphics and the displays. Also, 2016 and up all have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto too. And but otherwise, you know, as far as the normal audio screens and things like that, it all works well. This one does not have navigation, so I can't sample that. But otherwise, just a really nice screen. I like how it's integrated in here. It doesn't look like it's just tacked on. Coming down to the climate controls and things like that, again, I am so impressed. I mean, they're metal knobs that have a really nice resistance to them, and honestly, these knobs feel better than stuff in current BMWs. That's just my opinion, but I mean, it's really that nice. The buttons and everything are all, you know, pretty nice as well, but I mean, just really high quality feeling stuff here. Again, for something that's 20,000 bucks, it's kind of blowing my mind, sorry. As far as storage space in the Civic, that's another place where I have to give it a glowingly positive review, because first off, in the doors here, you have a dual bottle holder, a very large bottle holder, and then you also have a large map pocket area as well. Here in the doors, coming over to the center, you have this large tray underneath here first that you can fit a ton of stuff. That's also where you'll find your USB jack and power outlet. They are a little ways down there and not super easy to reach, but not hard either. But nice to have those nonetheless. And then coming up, you have a little pass-through first off, so you can pass those cables from the lower portion up to the top portion here to rest your plugged-in electronics and stuff up here. And also very deep, can fit, you know, all kinds of smartphones that are large and stuff. So really nice, and it's also a grippy material, so they don't go sliding around all over the place. So nice to have that. But that's not it. So you have this enormous center console. It is, I think the last thing I've seen with a center console this big was the Chrysler 200, and this might actually even beat it, because, you know, they got rid of the normal handbrake, and you have an electronic parking brake, which some people might not be very happy about. But because you got rid of that whole assembly, you have tons of space here, and everything slides back and forth. So you have the armrest that slides forwards and backwards. And speaking of the armrest, though, that is one thing, though. It's this rough, not very soft cloth, but it is a little bit padded, so it's not rock hard, but, you know, could use a little bit of improvement there. But anyway, you get that out of the way, and then you have two cup holders here that slide forwards and backwards that are a nice depth on their own. And then if you slide it back, you have another little cup holder there, so you could fit something enormous, like a huge Gatorade bottle or something would fit in there, no problem whatsoever. Very impressive. You also have another USB jack in here as well, but then if you slide the cup holders forward, then you'll find another cubby here in the back, and then if you open up the armrest top part here, you'll also find a little coin tray. So just a massive amount of storage space here, and it's quite remarkable. Usually coupes especially, it's like, oh, we make sacrifices, it's sporty, this, that, and the other. No such compromises here. It is just a 10 out of 10 as far as storage space goes. Backseat space in the Civic Coupe here is also very good. I talked with the owner, and he said that he's actually even put people up to like 6 feet tall in the back of this thing for over an hour, and they didn't have any complaints. They fit, you know, with ease, and so actually one of the most usable back seats here. And if my memory serves me right, this back seat looks about as large as the one in the current Accord Coupe. So that good as far as, you know, size wise. But just a very usable back seat. I mean, of course, it's still 2 doors, so you probably wouldn't want to use it every day, but you totally could, I think, even for people up to 6 feet tall, which is pretty impressive. Trunk space in the Civic Coupe is, again, very, very good for a coupe. I mean, it's not, I don't think, the largest out there, but it's very, very competitive with everything else in its class and beats, I think, most other coupe trunks. And so, you know, plenty of space for 2 people for sure, and you could fit even more than that in there. Just a very nice and usable trunk. So with all this high praise, I do have to mention the few little small downsides here with the Civic interior, because all those things I just mentioned are fantastic, and that's where they spend all their money. But some of the interior plastics still remind you this is a $20,000 car. So you have, you know, like this cloth on the armrest here that you get in the center and also on the door. It's very easily discolored, you know, when you're resting your elbow there and things like that. So that, you know, is already starting to look a little old, even though this is, you know, a brand new car essentially. And then, you know, some of the plastics and stuff, especially right here around this center screen and stuff, are all very hard plastics. And, you know, so that's the kind of stuff where they make the sacrifices. But honestly, you're not touching the side of your, you know, center console here every day. You're touching, you know, the steering wheel and using the infotainment and looking at the gauges all the time, and all these kinds of things are the things that are important, and those are the things they knocked out of the park. So I'll take, you know, the slightly harder, cheaper feeling interior plastics as a trade-off. I think that's a more than fair trade. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The EXT here, it has keyless access and push button start, a very cool red engine start button there. So you just put your foot on the brake, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up, and those gauges sweep to life there. Alright, so setting off in the 2016 Civic Coupe. So, this one being the EXT, the first thing you notice is for 2016 it only came in an automatic. Thankfully you can now get this turbo engine in the Coupe with a manual as well, and you can get that for all the models, whether it's the hatchback or the Coupe here, so very nice to have that. But this one has the automatic, it's a CVT, and so far it's not bad, you know, just cruising around and stuff. It's fairly responsive. It does make the throttle response a little dead, I think, because it's just constantly, you know, varying those pulleys or whatever to get that CVT to be the most efficient as possible. And it also does default to this econ mode, which also helps to, you know, give you better fuel economy and things like that. But as we're cruising down this road, this very rainy day, it actually has very good visibility here in the Civic. You have a very good view forward, so you don't even see the hood at all the way it drops down, and very large windshield as well. Not quite as large as the previous gen Civic windshield, but still very good and very good visibility. And then, you know, pretty thin A-pillar as well. It's pretty easy to see around. Very large side windows here, of course, in the Coupe, with the B-pillar is way far back there, so it doesn't inhibit your vision at all. And then view out of the back is great as well there, with a nice size rear window here for a Coupe. Another great thing though is with these Hondas here, you have that lane change assist thing. So whenever you flip on the right turn signal, it gives you a screen which has a camera connected to the side mirror there on the passenger side that'll give you, so you really don't even need to look at your side mirror, although you still should, and double check everything. But it's really nice to just glance at that and be like, oh hey look, there's no one in my blind spot. Not that this car has bad blind spots anyway, but you know, just again, always nice to have this little technology to help keep you a little bit safer. It's a very comfortable thing to drive around in though. I mean, the ride isn't buttery smooth, and you know, it's not library quiet in here, but it still is very nice and refined. Again, for something in this price range, I gotta say, this is a really nice thing just to cruise around in. Alrighty, so we'll put this into the sport mode here in the transmission, and let's turn down onto this back road here. Let's see how it does. Here we go. So it gets up and goes pretty well. It's an odd sensation with the CVT because there isn't any shifting really going on. It just kind of pegs it near the red line there and just holds it there. So the Civic here with this 1.5 liter turbocharged engine does 174 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. But being that it's turbo, it's very interesting because you have, I think the peak torque comes on at like 1700 RPM. So very, very early on. So you get all the torque right there at the bottom, very unlike a Honda. And so great to have that, but the peak horsepower doesn't come on until 6,000 RPMs, so you do still have to kind of, you know, rev it out a little bit. And yeah, but the red line isn't sky high; it's only 6,500. But it's it gets up and goes well. That's one thing. So the 0 to 60 on these, I believe, is right around like 6.8 seconds, which they say is only about 0.3 seconds off from the previous gen Civic Si. So of course that's partially because you have the CVT, so there's no shifting times. Maybe the manual would be a little bit slower, but still, it's really not that much slower than a Civic Si. Is it as dramatic as a Civic Si? No. Maybe that's because of the CVT partially, but also you just don't have, you know, a higher red line and the VTEC sensation that you used to get there in the older Si. And I'm looking forward to driving a new Si whenever those come out, and you know, get my hands on one of those, and hopefully that will retain a little bit more of that drama. This is, again, just a standard Civic Coupe, not, you know, one of the sport ones or anything like that. So for what it is, it's plenty quick, you know, to commute in, to have a little bit of fun in here, especially when you pop it into that sport mode there, and you got this you know, turbo that comes on. In addition to that turbo, the owners also added an in-gen cold air intake, which you can kind of hear a little bit of a whooshy sound there. Because of that intake, you really don't hear any turbo sounds though. Kind of surprising. I'm hoping once again on the sporty ones they turn that up. I'm assuming they just are guessing that, you know, everyone who buys the turbo in the standard Civic just kind of wants the additional power and efficiency of it, and not so much, you know, because they want a turbo car with all kinds of crazy sounds. But this is a fun little thing to drive around in though. I'm telling you what, this thing really rips whenever you get into it. Anyway though, going around a couple of corners here, nothing too crazy because, you know, it is wet here on the roads and stuff, but it really holds the road so well. And it's just, you know, these things are so light. I mean, they weigh around 2,800 to 2,900 pounds, depending on how they're optioned and stuff. So very, very lightweight cars. You don't even really need to do a whole lot of suspension wizardry to get these things to feel lightweight, because they are lightweight just by nature. I mean, you're looking at, you know, right around the same weight as almost like a BRZ or something like that. So they did a really good job of keeping the weight down on these, and you can certainly feel it in the corners. Other things to note, the brake feel is very good and firm. Right at the top of the pedal there, you don't really have to have too much travel. A little bit of travel, but it's just a really great brake pedal. Steering weight is also really great too. Again, for a standard Civic, it's not super light. And I think Civics in the past, that was one of the flaws I had with them, is that the steering felt a little too light sometimes. This has a nice weight to it. It's not overly aggressive or unnecessarily heavy or anything, but it is just really perfect, honestly. They really got everything perfect as far as the driving dynamics in this car. It just handles without any kind of fuss as we go around a few more entertaining corners here in the rain. So like I said, nothing dramatic here. I'm not going to push it too much, but it just really handles nicely. Going around a few more corners here. And I got to say also, these tires grip pretty well for being in the rain too, I must say. So a lot of tires get a little dicey whenever it gets wet, but these are gripping really well, and I think that also helps just because the car is so lightweight, and so it's just still very tossable. But everything is just so sharp and direct, and that's always been a Honda trait, especially in the Civics. They've always been very just point and shoot, and this one is no different. It still has that same great lightweight Honda handling feeling, and it's still, you know, it's gotten larger here over the years and stuff, but it just still is a really great thing to, you know, go down a back road in, and just a really nice thing to drive. It's just a nice thing. I've always loved Civics. I've always loved them. They've always been at the top of my recommendation list for people looking for a fun and affordable and reliable little car. And you know, I mean, these turbo motors are brand new, but you know, we'll keep our fingers crossed that Honda over-engineered them to last a very, very long time, because it's a great great little car here, brand new especially. These are really fun. Going around an on-ramp here, and it does stay glued to the road very well, and then you stomp on it. And I gotta say, the power delivery here in this, it feels very naturally aspirated, honestly. I mean, because of the CVT, I think that helps to spread out some of the turbo peakiness there, but unlike other manufacturers where, you know, it feels like they're relying heavily on the turbo, it feels fairly naturally aspirated in the way that the turbo is set up. You do get a good punch here, I'd say, between, 2,500 RPMs to 4,000. You put your foot down, and I mean, it pulls pretty well there, and it's very punchy in the low RPMs, which is unlike a lot of, you know, Hondas in the past. So that's a very welcome change, and it makes it really feel zippy whenever you're passing people, and especially around town and stuff. You can dart in and out of traffic very, very well with this. Another thing to mention real quick is that the stereo in this car is actually really clear and crisp and clean with the way it delivers its sound. You do have a good amount of bass too, but it's not muddy. It's very sharp, even with, you know, just standard FM radio, HD radio kind of stuff. It sounds really good. So again, just a really well done here, you know, in a standard Civic, standard, you know, radio and everything. Still sounds very good. I also have to add that the more that I drive this now in the sport mode with Econ off, the more the throttle response feels sharper and sharper, and it actually is a quite sharp throttle, and I really enjoy it whenever it's in that mode. Of course, whenever you have the normal mode, Econ mode, and all that kind of stuff, it feels really dull, but it does get sharpened up really nicely here whenever you have it in the sport mode. So yeah, and like I said, that combined with the great brakes and the great steering feel and everything just makes for a really tight feeling package. And yeah, so not really a whole lot more to say about it. Like I said, all the, you know, driving characteristics are spot on for a standard Civic, and even exceed a lot of my expectations, really. And so I'm just really anxious to get my hands on a manual one, to get my hands on, you know, the SI, which will have way more power for sure, and also the Type R, which should be an absolute monster of a car. So but yeah, huge thanks to Maxx for allowing me to review his Civic here. He's actually a Honda salesman who just lent me his personal car, but if you're interested in a Civic and you're in the area here, or any Honda for that matter, I have all the links to all his contact info and stuff in the description below. You can definitely check it out and give him a call and tell him that I sent you. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the Civic, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.